Trevor Lawrence, former number 1 overall pick, going up against former MVP, former Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP, Pat Mahomes. Jacksonville, just as a recap, had the third largest comeback in postseason history, beating the LA Chargers 31-30 after being down 27-0. Do you think they can go into Arrowhead, carry that momentum, and upset the Chiefs in their home?
No. I think what happened last week was an anomaly with the Jags having that massive comeback against the Chargers, but going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at Arrowhead with that crowd behind them, there's no way. Look, the fact that the Jaguars actually made it to a divisional round, I think is a major credit to themselves as a team and Doug Peterson being the head coach of the Jags in his first season. Because when you look at the Jags compared to what they were last year, this team has taken miles and miles of improvements compared to where they were last year with Urban Meyer. I mean, Urban Meyer was just an absolute disgrace as their head coach. And Doug Peterson, to his credit, has provided stability. And I think from a long-term perspective, this team has potential. It's just not going to be this year. This is going to be a good way to really keep the momentum going with them getting to the divisional round. But I think this is where their success is going to run out for this year, simply just because Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they have real expectations to possibly go for another Super Bowl this year. And the way that I see it, with Patrick Mahomes having the year that he had, he's probably going to win another MVP just because the numbers back it up. Threw for over 5,000 yards, had over, I believe, 40 touchdowns this year. And the Chiefs finished as the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they had one of the best records in the NFL. Now, when it comes to the Chiefs, obviously with them having the only bye in the AFC, there is that possibility of them displaying a little bit of rust when this game does kick off this weekend. But I think they may deal with that rust for like a drive or two, and then I think they'll be fine from there on out. So, the way that I see this game playing out from the first quarter to the end of the game is I think Jacksonville's going to try to establish getting out early. And I think this is going to be a complete antithesis of what they went through last week, because when they went up against the Chargers, they were down 27-0, like you said, Kev, in the lead up. And I think they're going to try to avert that at all costs, because if they go down 27-0 or something even similar to that type of score early against the Chiefs, there is no way that the Chiefs are going to let their foot off the pedal like the Chargers did in the second half of that game. So the Jags definitely have to make sure that they're not turning the ball over and that they're just establishing long drives on offense to keep Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense on the sideline. I don't foresee that happening just because I do believe that Chiefs defense in the early stages of the game is going to get after Trevor Lawrence, try to force him into some situations where he throws an errant pass, and that Chiefs secondary could come up with some turnovers. And I will say, Trevor has been known to be a little bit turnover prone. He's still relatively young. He's only in his second year. And, with him throwing 4 interceptions last week, there is a chance that he could possibly throw 1, maybe even 2 in this game if he's not careful. And then, when you flip it to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, I mean, all they have to do is maintain the consistency that they've had the entire year. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. And it's simply just because that offense has yet to really be stifled in any significant manner. And I just don't believe that Jags defense, while they have shown some flashes of great potential, especially with that pass rush, when they pin their ears back, it is one of the most underrated pass rushes in the NFL. But I think Pat and Andy Reid, they're going to come in with a game plan to counteract that by getting the ball out quickly, and especially with the Chiefs having some decent targets to throw to, like Juju Smith-Schuster. You've got Travis Kelce. You've got McKinnon out of the backfield, who's been an absolute stud for them. I think there's just going to be too many options for Jacksonville to try to cover, and I think eventually the dam is going to break with that Jags defense, and the only way the Jags are probably going to win in that scenario is if they win in a shootout. I don't believe that's going to happen. I got the Chiefs winning this one relatively comfortably. I think they're probably going to put up somewhere around 27 to 34 points. And I think the Jags, I think they'll be able to score probably somewhere around 17 to 24. I do believe that they could score against this Chiefs defense just because the Chiefs defense this year, they're average. They do have a tendency to give up points here and there, but not enough to the point where I think they lose this game. I think the Chiefs advance to the AFC Championship. And if I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say they win by the score of 31-21. I think they win by 10 points, and I think they'll play the AFC Championship against either the Bills or the Bengals the following week. But that's just how I see it.
I mean, similar to what Kyle said, I'm definitely going to go with the Chiefs. I mean, I will privy to kind of go off of what Kyle was just talking about. The Chiefs' defense is what I'm kind of going to circle on here. We do know for a fact that they have allowed a couple of teams to score a little bit more than they should have. And I mean, just to kind of go over their recent games, if you skip over the Vegas game that ended the season, I mean, with Jarrett Stidham, Raiders had nothing to play for. You go into the Broncos game, 27-24. They escaped by 3 points. The Seahawks game, the Seahawks could not get it going and all. Their defense actually stepped up that week, so that's going to be an anomaly, right? Then you go into the Texans, arguably the worst team in the NFL. The Chiefs barely escaped that game. That was 34-28. They lose to the Bengals 27-24. The Rams are one of the worst teams in the league. They beat them 26-10. That's no surprise. Then you go into the divisional opponent before that, the Chargers 30-27. The point I'm trying to make is here, the Chiefs have allowed bad teams to stay in games before. The Chiefs have allowed more points to bad teams than you would assume that they would. All I'm saying is it takes one drive to put a hole in the confidence of a defense. And Trevor Lawrence right now is riding a high. Yes, it started really low, absolutely low. 4 turnovers within the first half. Then you go and you have the second half that you did with 3 scores. You score a touchdown before the half, so you go in and end it with 4. It just takes confidence, man. Wild card teams or underdog teams, should I say? Excuse me. I keep assuming that they're a wild card team, but they won the division somehow, some way. And Trevor Lawrence is just riding that wave right now, man. I think that defense is riding that wave as well. I mean, we know Jacksonville's defense has been very up and down, and they have rode some waves as well where, they create a turnover when it matters the most. They'll get a strip sack. They'll stop somebody on 4th down. Doug Peterson has this team rallied. Doug Peterson has this team hyped, and they are rallying behind him. I mean, like what Kyle said, I mean, we're talking about Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson. It's a drastic difference. It's not even close. And it shows. Playoff berth. They haven't been in the playoffs in 4 or 5 seasons. We're talking about the last time they were there, 2017, Blake Bortles was Saxonville, and that was debatable of whether or not they should have went to the Super Bowl that year as well, but that's neither here nor there. They have returned back to this winning culture, and hopefully they continue to proceed because of the young pieces that they have. And then you flip now to Kansas City, number 1 seed in the playoffs, number 1 seed in the AFC, potential MVP favorite in Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, the offense best tight end in the game with Travis Kelce. They lost Tyreek Hill, didn't matter. Juju Smith-Schuster, Valdez-Scantling. Everybody stepped up when it mattered most. Traded for Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore is there as well on special teams and sometimes on certain third down situations and formations. The point of what I'm getting at is the Chiefs are such overwhelming favorites that it's like people are saying that it's not feasible, it's not possible. The only point I'm trying to say is if Jacksonville were to start this game off hot, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of gave the Chiefs a run for their money because of how much they have struggled this season against lesser teams. For whatever reason, if that defense can't stop Trevor, and if Jacksonville's defense continues to ride that second half that they had, they can't start off slow against this team. The Chiefs, when that offense gets going, they're damn near next to impossible to stop, especially Patrick Mahomes. If you can find a way to maybe force a turnover, get a couple of 3-and-outs here, give Trevor Lawrence the ball and that offense to get into a rhythm, despite being in enemy territory, this game will be a lot closer than people think. I think this is going to be a very impressive game. If it ends up being a blowout, it's not going to be a surprise. I'm just saying I can't just sit here and rule out the possibility of Jacksonville making this a game. Yes, I have the Chiefs winning. I don't think it's going to be by 3 or anything like that. I think it's going to be by comfortable margin, like 7 to 10 points. It just depends on how Jacksonville is going to approach this game. You have to be conservative with the ball, but you also cannot turn the ball over against this football team. You give Pat more attempts, that's going to be points on the board without a doubt. And that just means that defense for Jacksonville is going to be on the field a lot more, which means Patrick Mahomes is going to completely take advantage, maybe run the clock out with the tandem that they have in that backfield, the 3-headed monster with Allaire, Pachenko, whatever the hell his name is. And then, of course, you have McKinnon in that backfield as well. So I'm going to give the Jags the benefit of the doubt here and say that they're going to be competitive. The end result will be the Chiefs moving on to the AFC Championship, but Jacksonville will make a statement and make a name for themselves to let people know this is going to continue, and they're going to make a name for themselves in the future moving forward.